Everybody considers settlements not only a hurdle, but even more than a hurdle towards the two-state solution.
The core issue right now is how do we get a sovereignty for the Palestinian people, and how do we assure security for the Israeli people? And that's the essence of this negotiation. And that's not to say settlements are not important. It is to say that if we solve those two problems, the settlement problem will be solved. And so I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Charles, he didn't say unconditional negotiations, but boy, it really sounded like he was heading that way.
And the statement you just showed, I think, is one of the most important ever made by a president of the United States about Arab-Israeli peace. What he essentially was saying to the Palestinians and the world is, yes, I'll say that settlements are a problem, they're legitimate, etc. But the main issue is Israeli security and Palestinian statehood. If you can achieve that, in other words, if you get a peace between a Palestinian state and a Jewish state, then you draw the line. Everybody understands that when the line is drawn between the territories, Israeli settlements will be, the Israeli settlements on the Palestinian side will all be evacuated. So he is saying the problem will be solved if there is a peace agreement. It is not an obstacle, because as in Gaza, all the settlements were removed. There will not be settlements. There won't be Jews left on the Palestinian side of the line. So this is a way to truly undercut the Palestinian argument, and this is what Abbas has been now saying for all of Obama's first term. I cannot negotiate unless there's a freeze in settlements. Obama understands today, as he did not at the beginning of his term, that that is entirely a ruse. He wants a negotiation, so he's saying to the Palestinians, the ball is in your court, no preconditions, you can start right now, and you should. That is a major change in position.
But I mean, he was basically saying, your political leaders aren't going to take these risks unless you push them and force them to take these risks. And it was an interesting play, particularly coming as it did after what he had said in the press conference.
But I would attribute all that to rhetoric. Look, Obama understands that with what's happening around Israel, Egypt in the hands of the Brotherhood, rockets landing today from Gaza, chemical weapons probably loose in Syria, Hezbollah on the northern border, and Iran today announcing that it will destroy Haifa and Tel Aviv if there's an Israeli attack. In that kind of uncertainty and hostility, there's no way any Israeli government can even be asked to take risks today. So I think he understands that that process, for all the rhetoric, is way back in terms of the priorities. Number one is Iran, number two is Syria.
3 years ago, this coming Saturday, was a historic time in this country and in the world, actually, because the Affordable Care Act passed. It was the greatest single step in generations to help American people.
There's been 17,000 pages of regulations issued so far. I don't think anybody knows exactly what's in all of them.
It's amazing how much authority the Department of Health and Human Services has just to make things up as they go along. Most of what's going to happen was not actually written in the legislation. It is up to the discretion of the Obama administration.
I guess when you hear doctors who are opposed to Obamacare or concerned about it, they talk about the 18 million added to Medicaid, and they talk about already a doctor shortage, and that underpayment for Medicare already happens. Right. And if you think there's a shortage now, just wait until this thing kicks in at 2014. I guess that's the biggest thing you hear. And it points to the distinction between health insurance and real health care. You could have sham health insurance, which a lot of Americans are going to get, but if you don't have a doctor, if doctors will refuse to treat because of the payment schedules that are obscenely low that no doctor will take, and already today Medicare patients are turned away from a lot of doctors. If that becomes widespread, there's going to be no real care. And I think the other point that's emerging as it begins implementation with all these regulations is that those of us who claimed early on that it was nationalizing
health care, even though it's disguised as still a private system. We're absolutely right. The insurers now, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of pages of regulations. Obscure, arcane, written by the bureaucrats, only understood by them, and also administered, as are the waivers. All of the powers in the hand of the government now, and it's an arbitrary one. People are going to discover that it's a system run out of Washington. It is not a private system. And I would say, if you're going to go that way, go the way of the British, do it honestly, openly, and simply own it instead of this pretend private healthcare system.
Down the road, is Obamacare a major issue in the 2014 elections?
Absolutely, and it's going to hurt the Democrats.
No, it's not. It wasn't an issue in the big election where his name was on the ballot.
Because it hadn't been implemented.
This has been a Sunfish production.